Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this morning, I'm joined by Kim-Adele Platts, who's a board level coach. And we're going to have a chat about business and lockdown and all sorts of things, really. So how are you doing this morning, Kim? You okay?
I'm really good, Mike. Thanks so much for having me on. And how are you getting on today?
Yes, I'm awesome. I'm living my best life at the moment. I've had a great lockdown, and I love podcasting and networking, which I do combine together. So yeah, all's good for me.
Good. It is a great way of doing it, isn't it? And I think one of the beauties of lockdown has been that we've all become so much more connected. The world's become a much smaller place, hasn't it? And you can network globally in a way that we perhaps didn't think we could before.
Yes, definitely. I think it's accelerated the global community much quicker. And I'm massively into efficiency. So I really love podcasting because I'm having a networking chat, recording a podcast episode, putting it on YouTube, and then sharing all of that to my social media. So it's just a very quick, efficient way of filling everything up.
Yeah, it's a great way of getting content. And you get some amazing people to meet and chat to, don't you, in things like this?
I've had some awesome people, yeah, and you know, I'm a big network, and I've got a big network, and I started off by interviewing them, but now my network is growing globally, and I'm meeting people not just in the networking situation, but you know, LinkedIn and Facebook and WhatsApp, and connecting and reaching much further, and it's just awesome. So yeah, really enjoying life. But on to yourself. The first question I like to ask people is, how's the lockdown been for you? And also, what have you done, if anything, to pivot during that time?
So lockdown's been it's been interesting. So I live on my own with my 3.5-year-old little girl. So the start of lockdown was an interesting time in trying to organise that, I guess. You know, you can't really explain to a 3.5-year-old that mummy still needs to work. So there was quite a lot of bribery and, like, you know, if we could just do this. And people were really helpful in the fact that they were very accommodating when occasionally, you know, I'd be in the middle of a call and she'd come in fully dressed as Elsa and start waving at them. But you know, people were accepting of that, and I ended up having to move my business so that I was doing a lot more work in an evening when she'd gone to bed, and a lot less in the day when she was up. But she's now, bless her, able to go back to nursery, so that's really helped because we've been able to get a bit more balance. And I guess for me, you know, there was, just as we went into lockdown, I was just about to launch a face-to-face mastermind group with an exec recruitment firm. And we were literally going live in April. So I'd kind of started to wind down some of my other work because that was going to need all of my effort. And then obviously we had lockdown. And it was like, well, that won't be happening yet this year. So you best do something different. So I started to do more online pieces, encourage more people to actually start to do coaching online. So I've been very fortunate. I've picked up a few clients, and also some organisations that are needing to transform significantly and do so at pace, but just need a bit of help in how do you do that with kindness and humanity. And then in the most random thing that happened to me in lockdown, and it was on day one of lockdown, I got a phone call from somebody who said, "You've worked remotely before, Kim, haven't you?" I was like, "Yes, I have." They're like, "We're writing a book. How do you fancy being one of the authors on it? The only challenge is you've got 5 days within which to write it, because we're going to publish it the week after." And I was like, "Go on then. You know, life sometimes throws you an opportunity, and you know you should take the chance." So I am astonished and proud to say that on week 3 of lockdown, I became an international best-selling author because the book got published and went to number 1. And then I subsequently co-authored a second book during lockdown, which has also become an international bestseller and has resulted in a new podcast show that we're on fortnightly as well. So there's been, I guess that's been a significant change for me, having headed into it, having just about written a post now and again. I've come out of it having co-authored something, which has been amazing.
Yeah, that's great. That's interesting. I wrote a book as well in the beginning of lockdown. I haven't published it yet because I've got some politics I've got to clear up before I do publish the book, because it's a warts and all life story.
Okay.
But I wrote it in one day, actually. I wrote it in one day, the book, but I went back and forth to add bits in. But the main story I wrote in one day. And then I thought, actually, I wanted to be educational and to help people as well. So I've added a load of other stuff to it. But the actual story I wrote in one day. But yeah, I've been working on it since and tinkering with it a bit. And I added a new ending a bit later on because something happened in my life which needed to go in the book. That didn't happen. It happened in lockdown, before, after I wrote the book, if you like. So, so it just, so yeah. And I suppose I could add a bit more to it again now, because my book was about lockdown, and it was about it's about bouncing back. And it was written during lockdown, and I've mentioned that in the book. So I said, who knows how lockdown's going to end? So I could end a bit more of how actually it has ended, because if you like, it's real time. It's like a life story. As you write it, it's still going on, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It continues to evolve, doesn't it? And actually, you kind of, I think that's the beauty of life. Life might throw us the odd plot twist, but it goes on, doesn't it? And it's then how we deal with that plot twist and how we navigate it as best we can.
Yeah, definitely. And so what was the first book about, and what's the second book about, and what's the podcast about?
Okay, so the first book is called Remote Working, and it basically was trying to help people who've suddenly found themselves having to work remotely learn from people who have been working remotely for years. So in it, my particular chapter was on the benefits of the virtual water cooler. So one of the challenges when you lead a remote team is that you forget to connect with them socially. So it becomes very task orientated and people get disconnected, because if you were in an office, you have the coffee machine or the water cooler. You do ask people about, what they watched last night or what they're doing at the weekend. And you can forget to do that in a virtual relationship unless you make the effort for it. So it was very much around that. And then the second one is called Women Leading. And it really, again, it was a co-authored book. So there was 18 authors in that, men and women, that were just talking through the differences in how women traditionally lead versus how men traditionally lead, and how we can learn together and collectively be stronger. And that's the book that's turned into a podcast. So we've got our third episode tomorrow. But basically there's 3 of us that are the authors that are the regular panelists. And then we have guests that come on. So tomorrow, one of our guests is a fellow author, so Nish Ramsandi. And also we've got an executive coach called Grace Ong coming on as well to discuss how you break through the perceived glass ceiling. Is tomorrow's topic, but we've kind of been working through a variety of topics that are hopefully going to help people to find some ways through their own challenges or to kind of break through whatever's holding them back right now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds good. It sounds interesting. So so on that side of things, the podcast, you're looking for top female entrepreneurs, I guess, to have on your podcast, yeah?
Yeah, men and women, though, to be fair, because I think for me this is about how we all grow together. There's no one side that's right and no one side that's wrong. So our last episode, this episode happens to be all women, but actually this is the first time we've had a complete female show. So in the first one we had a gentleman called Richard Bellas join us, and the second episode was Mike Davies Marks, who's got a fascinating journey and perspective on leadership. And I think really it's about having more of a debate around what's going on right now and what's needed within leadership and how can we learn from each other. And I think it's conversations like this, isn't it, that I always find them so fascinating, because you learn so much about each other and people's different perspective. And you can, every day, my nan used to say every day's a school day. And she's not wrong. We learn something every day if we're present to the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and well, if you wanted some powerful women, I know quite a few anyway. I network with quite a lot, and also if you wanted somebody to come on, I'm always happy to return the favour as well. So bear that in mind. I used to be a corporate sales director, and I don't understand anything about glass ceiling because I worked in a tech startup business for 10 years.
Yes.
I got promoted 9 times in 6 years. And basically, I always just designed what next job I wanted whilst doing the job I was doing. So to me, but I was lucky, I suppose. I was in the environment where they didn't have these glass ceilings, you know,
Yeah.
so you could actually just do whatever you wanted to do and forge your own path. Whereas I know in more established companies there are, you know, traditional ceilings and only so many people can get promoted and all of that. But I always think if you're, I've got a motto in life which is act as if. So if you want to get to the next level in life, act as if you're at that level, and eventually the person at that level will move up a level and put you in that place. So that's my sort of strategy.
It's a great motto to have, because I think that is, you know, that is true. I started off as a hairdresser and ended up as COO for a FTSE 250, and was convinced every day that they were going to come in and go, oh my God, we put the hairdresser on the board. That's a bit awkward. Best get her off. And it was like, and clearly that wasn't why I got there. I got there because of my ability and what I'd done. But for a long time, I couldn't see that. And I really struggled with that inner imposter. And a lot of people do. I mean, it's like Einstein has a quote, which is something along the lines of, the high esteem within which my work is held leaves me feeling like an unlikely swindler. So even somebody who is universally recognised as a genius didn't actually really understand his own genius. So I guess it's, you know, that's something that's been kind of prevalent, and I guess I do quite a lot of work with people now on kind of helping them recognise why they are where they are and how much they've achieved, and really own that space.
Yeah, because I had a little look at your website and your YouTube channel, etc., and there's quite a lot of content there about confidence, about so you know, as somebody, I do a lot of sales and marketing training, and actually both sales and marketing are massively dependent on how confident you are. If you're the marketeer delivering content, if you believe in that content, you'll be able to phrase it in a better way and put it out in more places and all the rest of it. Whereas if you don't believe in the content and what you're putting out there, you're going to put less energy and passion and enthusiasm into it. And it's the same with sales. If you've got imposter syndrome and you don't believe you're helping somebody with the solution that you're providing, which is something I teach people, is to be a solution seller, not a seller, not a salesperson, but a solutions provider, a helper. But if you actually really do believe in what you're offering is helping somebody, then it's very easy to sell.
Yeah, no, that's it. Because actually, you know, there's a big part around making sure that, you know, we're here to solve things for people. If they've not got a problem, they don't need your solution. So do the work to find out if they've got a problem first. And I remember, so I was head of sales for a large corporate for a few years. And I remember standing up at the annual conference, and much to my boss's utter disgust as the head of sales, I started my speech with, the first thing you need to remember is nobody actually wants our product. And you could see his face go a little white, like, oh my God, where's she going with this? This is going to be really awkward. And I was like, nobody wants it, they need it. I said, so first thing you've got to understand is, are you wants-based or needs-based? We're accounting software. So unless they're an accountant, they did not go into business because they wanted to do accounts. So don't try and create a want in them. It isn't there. They need to do their accounts because they need to be compliant and they need to meet the regulation. So talk to them about their need and how you're going to meet that. Don't try and create some desire. You know, we're not going to be the next Apple. There isn't going to be anybody that sleeps out overnight outside HMV waiting for the next release. And if they did, they're probably a bit odd. So, you know, you need to understand that first. It's a little bit like, you know, if I want a Mont Blanc, it's not because I want a pen. It's because I want the experience. So there's no point talking to me about the pen, because if all I wanted to do was write, I'd probably go and get a Bic. Likewise, if I'm going to go and get a Bic, don't try and create a big want and desire in me because it's a disposable pen. It's like I just want it to do what I want it to do. I said, but that's, for me, probably one of the biggest challenges that I've seen over the years is people don't do that piece of work first. They don't understand what it is that they're appealing to. And then to your point, you've got to absolutely believe in it. You've got to believe that actually what I can do is going to really, really help you. And why would I not want to share that with you? Because I know you've got a problem. I know you're in pain as a result of that problem in some way, because you're wanting or needing something that you haven't got. And I could reduce that for you. I could take away that pain or concern and deliver exactly what it is that you need. Actually, you are compelled, therefore, to go and share that, aren't you? Because we all want to help. We want to leave things better than we found them. But you do have to believe that first. I've always said over the years that I spent 20 odd years doing sales, and it was like, I can only sell stuff that I believe in. At the point I don't believe in it, I'm no use to you. Because actually it's not genuine, and I won't be able to sell, because I won't sell to somebody. I'd much rather people buy from me. And that means you do an extra bit of work, doesn't it, that says they're making the decision, that they recognize that they've got a problem or a desire or a need, and they recognize that you're the solution, and they're making the conscious choice. And I think for me, that's when you know that you're working on the thing that you're supposed to be working on.
Yeah. So one of my first, I do a Wolf of Wales feature on my podcast, which is about sales. And the first episode was, if you want to learn to be a good seller, stop selling and start providing solutions. So that's the early one. And and the other one on, I lost the other chain of thought now, but it'll probably come back to me. But because I had a couple of other things I wanted to ask you, and they got in the way, if you like. But one of them, so obviously we've covered mindset and confidence and belief and a lot of that. What other sort of skills or things do you coach to board level people, really, as part of your service?
Yeah, so a lot of it is actually, how do people reconnect? So, a lot of board level leaders have got where they've got because they are highly intelligent. Their IQ is definitely not in question. But for many years, we were told to keep emotions out of the boardroom, to not bring those elements in. And yet now, as the world's evolved, as we've got new generations coming through, what millennials and things are looking for is they want somebody who's going to have some presence and some impact, some social impact, some personal brand and emotional intelligence. And actually, it's how do you help people reconnect with that? Because it's not saying they've not got emotional intelligence, they've just not had to overtly use it. So helping people to share a little bit of their vulnerability without losing their credibility at board level, so that they can actually create a culture that engages, enthuses and empowers people. Because one of the biggest challenges facing most boards is the concern about their ability to attract and retain top talent. And we all know that people don't leave an organisation, they leave their boss. So if you're seeing talent leave, or you're not being able to attract the talent that you want, then actually that dents your credibility as a leader, because there is an element of you've not created the right culture, and the culture comes from you. It's not just what you say and do, it's what you allow others to say and do that goes unchecked, that creates the culture. And too often over the years, I've worked in places that think they've got a cultural problem and they take it to HR. And it's like, no, you've got a cultural problem. It has to start with you. And I can help you with that, because you can take people on some of the most horrendous journeys. One of the organisations I worked with, I had to take them through 5 major redundancy programmes in 2.5 years. It was horrendous. I mean, heartbreaking to see the impact it had on people. And I'm proud to say that at the end of it, we hadn't got a single tribunal, we didn't have a single grievance, and 98% of the people had a job to go to, because we did it with kindness. We put our effort into making sure they realised it was not as a result of them. It was not as a result of anything that they'd done. It was as a result of our trading situation and some mistakes that had been made in the past. And as a result of that, they didn't carry that failure into their next role. And if you do it badly, people get impacted by redundancy for years to come, because they've not dealt with the fact that it wasn't about them, and they carry that doubt and that lack of belief into their future.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So I do a lot of online networking, and obviously I used to do a lot of real world networking as well. Do you do so much networking, and what sort of areas do you like to network in, etc.?
So I do quite a lot. I actually run 2 ladies networking groups, one in London and one in Grantham. And I often get, because my network's quite big, and it is predominantly male, to be honest, because of the kind of jobs and things that I've done. And I often get the guys go, why do you just do women only ones? I was like, I don't. I do lots of networking that is mixed. But actually, for a lot of women, they find it very, very nerve-wracking to start networking. And so for me, running the women's only ones allows me to put them in a safe place where they're comfortable, they learn to network, and then introduce them to my broader network, so that they actually start networking with men and women, not just women, but it's a safer way of them getting comfortable in that networking, because for a lot of people it's really daunting, isn't it?
It's intimidating, yeah.
You've got to go and you've got to go and say hello to people. And I remember sitting, it was a couple of years ago, and I was sitting in the car outside an Indian restaurant in Sleaford in an industrial estate, and I was about to go to my first networking event since I'd gone on my own. So it was the first time I needed to do it without a big corporate title to hide behind, without without all the trimmings that I'd used as my confidence builders over the years. And I remember sitting there thinking, I can't do it. It's just too hard. It's like, I'm not going to have anything to say. It's going to be really, really difficult. And then I sat there and I was like, it's an hour of your time, and there's going to be probably 12 people in there. It's really not going to be that hard. They're probably feeling as nervous as you are about what they're going to say and what they're going to do. So I plucked up the courage and I went inside, and I met the most amazing guy who actually lives 3 streets away from me here, and with his wife and his daughter. And his daughter had just gone into remission from a really rare bone cancer. And I said to him, I don't know if it helps, but I happen to be connected to Mark Woods, who's the Paralympic gold medalist who lost his leg at 17 to the same cancer. Would it be helpful if I connected you? And he was like, would you do that? And I was like, it's probably why I'm in an Indian restaurant in Sleaford at lunchtime. It's like, we are all where we are for a reason. Sometimes you just don't know what the reason is. And we connected them up, and they're doing something together in charity. But we've become each other's non-exec. We meet every couple of months and just check in on each other and see how our businesses are going. And through the power of networking, I've done some amazing things. Like we met through the WhatsApp networking group. I ended up, I think Anne-Marie Cross, who is the podcast queen. I ended up on her podcast last year, and we've become really good friends. She's in Australia. That was blew my mind, to be fair. So we went live, and it was live Thursday morning for Anne-Marie, but it was actually Wednesday night in my kitchen for me. And I was like, there is something about getting your head around that, but it's like, Thursday hasn't come for me yet, and yet we're out live on Thursday. So there's been some amazing opportunities to meet some fantastic people, and to connect up globally. And as a result of the networking, I've ended up becoming one of the associates for DNA Associates. So they're kind of based out of Barcelona, but they've got colleagues from Australia, from New Zealand, from Brazil, and we've all connected through online, through either LinkedIn or WhatsApp, and actually now a combination of all of those. So I think it's something that people do find really daunting, but the truth is everybody feels as daunted as each other, and all you've really got to do is say hello. And people are so thrilled that somebody said hello. The rest of it comes easy, doesn't it? Because people are just like, oh my God, somebody said hello. I'm no longer got nobody to talk to. And I think Zoom and WhatsApp groups and LinkedIn are a great way of networking, and you just don't know who you're going to meet and what potentially you're going to be able to get involved in. And it's not about, I think for me the importance is I don't ever see them as a way to sell, and that's not my purpose. I always see them as an opportunity to meet new people and learn their stories, and hopefully find out a little bit more about who it is that they're looking for. Because one thing that I pride myself on is being useful to my network. So actually, the more people I know, when somebody goes, and I've just come off a call where someone was talking about needing to get their website finalized, and I was like, oh, actually, I know a guy who is the most amazing guy at copy. His ability to take your story and turn it into something that's so poetic, but is still you, is breathtaking. And she was like, would you connect me? I was like, absolutely, of course I will, because I want to be useful. That's no business for me at all, but that's not the point. The point is I remained being somebody that was helpful because they had a problem and I helped fix it, just not with myself. It was with somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do that all the time, connecting people together. Sometimes I get a benefit for it and sometimes I don't, but I always get a benefit for it, really. I mean, a financial benefit, because actually the benefit is, you've helped somebody and their business has improved, your feeling has improved, and the world has improved, so
karma's a beautiful thing, and we put good out in the world and good will come back, and it doesn't have to be so linear. And I think that's what people sometimes forget. It's like, I gave you this, so I expect you to give me something back. It's like, no, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Had something, I remember many years ago, a young lad who worked for me got himself in a little bit of a difficult situation, and he ran out of money a couple of weeks before payday. So I went and got him one of these prepaid credit cards, and I put £50 on it, and I gave it to him so that he'd got some money for him and his girlfriend and their little one for food. And he said, I'll pay you back. I said, please don't, but do me a favour, promise me one thing. At some point in your life, when you are in a position to do this for somebody else, do it for them, pay it forward. Because that's actually all I need, is to know that at some point, and bless him, he went on to write this beautiful card and said, I promise you, I will absolutely pay it forward. And I was like, but that's the thing, there for the grace of God go all of us at some point. And at the moment, if you're in a place where you can pay it forward, because you never know when you're going to need that paying forward to you or to somebody that you love and somebody you care about. But if we all operate like that, the world's going to be a much more abundant place.
Yeah, definitely. I massively agree with that. And yeah, you should join two friends of mine, Dawn and Tracy. They set up a new network on Facebook, a group called Inspirational Women of the World.
Oh,
And they do a real world event, but it's called IWOW for short, IWOW. And there's some people you should connect with, because they're good friends of mine, and they're similar sort of people to us, really, connectors and people who want to help each other out and that sort of thing.
No, that'd be great. I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah, because Tracy runs Wales's biggest business network, of which I'm a member, and also Wales's biggest business show. And Dawn runs she runs an amazing business where she teaches people how to save lives, but she teaches lots of other training as well. And she did run Wales's largest education show, which was called the National Education Show. And she sold that recently, and now she runs, I think it's already, or it's going to be, Wales's biggest health and mental health and well-being show.
Wow.
So they're two really good, fantastic women that I think you should have on your podcast at some point. And I'm somebody worth having on your podcast as well, from a male perspective. I know lots of great people, because I tend to meet and network with other power network, other collaborators, connectors of people. I think birds of a feather flock together somehow. So that energy, that vibration, it resonates. It even resonates on a Facebook post or a Twitter. When your personality and your body language isn't there, but somehow the energy and the vibration is.
No, absolutely, because I think people do flock together. They say like-minded people will eventually find like-minded people, and it's like we get in the world what we look for. If we look for kindness, we see kindness. If we look for lack of kindness, we'll find that too. And it's like actually, for me, I was choose to find the positive. There is a positive in every situation. There is always something that you can that you can cling on to. And I say that despite having had 3 potentially life-threatening illnesses. It's like there is still a positive. I mean, for a start, somebody said to me yesterday, I was like, why are you still so positive? I'm like, well, I'm not dead. It's like, you could look at all of those other things. She was just laughing. I went, well, it's true, I'm not, am I? It's like, I might have faced a few challenges along the way, but I'm still here. I'm still smiling. I'm still going strong, and I still have the opportunity to be better today than I was yesterday. And for every day that I wake up, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the fact that I get a chance to learn something new, that I get a chance to be better than I was yesterday. And I get a chance to see my little girl grow and meet amazing people and have great conversations. It's like, it is a really blessed life. It's a great way of living. And I think because of that, you end up meeting people who feel the same, who see the beauty in life and want to share that with more people.
Yeah, I'm listening to a Les Brown audio book at the moment, and his answer to when people ask him how are you is I'm better than good, I'm better than most, and that's because of somebody in his life a long time ago who was in a wheelchair, and he was in a wheelchair, and she was in a wheelchair. She had her kids taken off her because she couldn't look after her, and she was very badly disabled, but she was in a wheelchair. And he was a radio show, and somebody phoned in, and you could tell in her voice she wasn't very well, and she was on about she'd been given a bad cancer diagnosis. I think it was going to end her life, and she wanted to just end it quickly rather than go through the pain. And to try and stop her doing that, he introduced her to this woman. He said, "Oh, just do me a favor, hold it off till tomorrow, and I'm going to take you somewhere." And he took her to this woman, and that was, and he asked her, "How are you feeling?" And she said, "Oh, I'm better than good, better than most." And this woman didn't end her life because of the situation of thinking, no matter how bad I'm in, and there is always somebody worse. And that's the thing, is that most people aren't grateful for being alive. But what you said is, every day is another fantastic day. We're alive, and you get to enjoy the vast sort of fantasticness of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't wrong doesn't mean to say things don't go wrong, but actually, when they go wrong, you go, it's just a lesson. So everything in life is a lesson, a blessing, or both. But you've just got to be present to it. And actually, we grow through our pain. So I learn as much through the things that hurt me as I've done through the things that gave me joy.
Sometimes more. Sometimes you learn more from the pain than you do from the excitement.
Yeah, you do, because the thing you learn is that you will survive.
Yeah.
You have, and some days you don't know how. I remember at one point, I got to a place where I didn't know how to breathe. I was that upset about things that were going wrong, and it was like very, very melodramatic. But funnily enough, I kept breathing. I kept waking up, and I kept going to work. And then all of a sudden, you look back, and it was 3 weeks ago, and you were like, "Oh, well, it's not. It's not ended everything. It has been fine. We are able to move on." I think you've got to acknowledge the pains, and you've got to recognize that it's painful and deal with that, but also know that it isn't going to be the thing that stops you living. It's just going to be the thing that enriches your life.
Yeah, I always say, I like the Rocky saying, life's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep coming forward. And that's what those bad things teach you, is that actually I can keep getting hit, and I'll keep going. Nothing's going to stop me, And that's what I like.
They say it's not the mistake that defines us; it's what we do with the mistake.
Yeah.
And I think it's. I guess that's the thing. You've always got a chance to go back and make good. When things go wrong, you can acknowledge it, you can accept it, and then you can go back and make good on it, and find a new way of doing it. And I think for me, that's been the greatest lesson that I had, and also that all of us have got something in us that we are supposed to do. And I think we've all got a natural talent, and we've spent so many years being concerned about ego that nobody dares talk about their natural talent because it seems so egotistical. And yet we all have something that comes so naturally to us that we don't even notice it's talented, because you just kind of go, well, I do this all the time. So I remember when I found my talent is I can talk to anybody. I used to joke that I had hairdresser face. People will tell me
that hairdressing start is a good start for that.
So people on tubes and that will tell me things, and you're just like, really? You're telling me this? I didn't think people talked on tubes. But I realised it isn't actually because I've got hairdresser face. It's because I'm genuinely interested in people and I like talking to them. And it doesn't seem very talented. So you see all the people that can't, all the people that are so stuck about making that first move, about saying hello that first time, because what if they don't answer? Which, if they don't answer, it says more about them than it says about you.
Yeah.
Don't make it about you. And this is what we do in life, is what factually happened and what have we made it mean, because we get lost in the what we made it mean, and that's what hurts us from an emotional point of view. When if you actually just go back to the facts, they might not have heard you. They might not have thought you meant them, because actually, I remember doing this in all my leadership roles, kind of walking in, saying good morning as you walk through the office, and it usually takes 3 weeks before somebody says hello back. And it's embarrassing. You do it every day going, no one's going to say yes, but I'm going to keep going because it's the right thing to do, and I want to engage with them. But the reason they don't is because they're not expecting it, because the leader hasn't walked through and said good morning to them before. So they're not expecting it to be them. And then when they realise you're being consistent and you keep doing it, then they will start to say hello back. And trust me, it's the best feeling in the world when you finally get somebody to say hello back, because you can stop feeling like quite such a wally going in every day and saying hello to yourself. but it really helps see the impact people's cultures are having. And I remember one guy coming up to me once and going, yeah, I really like you because even though you're not my leader, you always say hello. And I was like, right, that's a bit tragic, because I say hello because I'm a nice person. It doesn't make me a good leader, but it speaks volumes about the fact that you notice it means that you don't see it in others. You're not seeing it in other leaders, and that's really sad because, you know, we should want to engage with our people, and we should want to know what do they need from us to be able to thrive, because organizations very often spend hours and hours on their business plan. This is my strategy, it's my 5-year plan. And they will go to the effort of also going, and this is what I think my clients are going to want, my customers, and I've got my customer plan that sits in it. They very, very rarely come up with what do the colleagues need. They look at it from a what do I need of the colleagues to be able to do this, instead of what do the colleagues need from me to enable them to do this. And once you change that shift, actually you start delivering the service to the colleagues that you expect them to deliver to your customers, and the results are exponential. But it's getting them into that mind shift, which is, it's not what do I need from them, it's what do they need from me. That I think is the game changer for leaders.
Yeah, and something I used to have in my corporate environment, which was really, really good, which we used to have like a box which you can put suggestions in, like a suggestions box for improvements and innovations. And the best, they would all get assessed by a committee rather than an individual. And the best ones would be selected, and the people would be given awards and prizes and that sort of thing. And it actually created so much innovation and got people so massively engaged into the business. And you know, it was just a fantastic thing. And I think, you know, I think the breakdown in most relationships and the success in most relationships always comes down to the big C, communication. You know, so something as simple as saying hi to people, but actually, you know, more importantly, listening to them and listening to their griefs and acting upon them and stuff. And I think all relationships can massively improve through people improving their communication with each other.
I completely agree, and it's you know, it's true. And what a great suggestion boxes is such a great idea, because your people know all of the stupid things that you do every day that you've forgotten that you do, because they've become the norm. And actually, when they're the ones having to do them every day, they know that they're a bit ludicrous. And when they tell you about them, you're like, well, that is ludicrous. Let's stop that. But until you ask for them, you don't know. And these things, you know, these things carry on, and they become myth. And actually, there's a huge amount that you can do much more effectively in your organization if you listen. But I guess one of the challenges is very often people don't listen to understand. They listen to interject. So I listen just long enough until I can add my point. So you're not really listening to understand what are they trying to say. So actually they're frustrated about something. Forget the emotion. What is it that's causing that emotion? Because if all you're ever going to do is respond to the emotion, you're never going to get to the root cause, and you're not going to get to understand the thing that actually is frustrating your people, because it probably is also frustrating your organization. And you're right, communication is critical. And there's a fascinating book that I've just been listening to on Audible, which is called Crucial Conversations. And I recommend it to anybody. It's amazing. And it talks about the fact that in our life, whether that's in business or in life in general, or even just going shopping, there can be moments when you realize that a conversation has become crucial. And by that, I mean it's suddenly become emotively charged. And what happens is that as human beings, we tend to respond with either violence or silence. So either I feel under attack and therefore I'm going to go on, I'm going to defend, and the best form of defense is attack. So I'm going to attack back, and now all of a sudden we're in a massive argument. Or I'm going to totally withdraw from the situation and hope it goes away. Neither one of those is a great response. Neither one of them actually allows you to deal with whatever the challenge is that needs to be there. And it's because somebody in that conversation is feeling fear. They're feeling that they're in a position where they're about to lose something. So what you have to do first is build a safe space, so that actually, and some of that can be share your vulnerability. So it could be a case of saying, right now, I would rather stick my head down the toilet than have to have this conversation with you. However, I'm completely committed to us finding a collaborative route through. And therefore, I need to bring it to your attention that this causes me some concern. This causes me some problem. Because in doing that, what I've done is make it safe for you. I've said, actually, do you know what? I'm completely committed to doing something together. We can find a solution. And I don't really want to be doing this. I'm feeling really uncomfortable. So actually, if you're feeling uncomfortable, that's okay, because so am I. So now we're in it together. And I want to find a solution. I'm now able to, because we're both coming at it from a safe space. So you're not under attack, I'm not under attack. We both recognise that there's some vulnerability. We've committed to the fact we want to find a solution for both of us. Now we can just talk about the facts. So factually, what's going on? Not what if I made it mean, not what if I created as my new presence, but actually factually, this is what's happened and it's made me uncomfortable. And you can talk about that in a really safe space then. But it's an amazing book. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I did write it down on my phone. I couldn't find my pen, so I wrote it down on my phone while you were talking. So sorry for looking down for a moment, but I was making a note of it. I love recommendations of people's books, especially if I can get it on audio. So I'll see if I can find it on audio on YouTube, probably.
I was going to say it is on Audible, because that's how I did it. Because I sometimes struggle to get around to actually reading a book, but find that if I've stuck my earphones in, I can get away with listening to one while I'm cooking dinner, usually. So you get a little bit of education in every day.
Yeah, I go out and exercise on my bike, once a day, and sometimes in the house, and sometimes out on the bike a second time a day, depending on the weather. And I listen on my bike, and if I'm going for a walk or whatever, I listen in the car, and I listen when I'm cooking as well. So whenever I can listen, I don't like to have wasted time. And even though I'm doing one thing, I consider that wasted time if I can do something else at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, for me, if I can cram both in, then it's a good thing. And also, I'll often have an audible book on while I'm sat doing, if I'm doing any of the social media updates and things. It's like, actually, you can be listening to something at the same time, and you feel like you're learning as well, don't you? Which is always nice.
Yeah. I always feel efficient, and to me, efficiency is the key to success. To sustain success, if you can be as efficient as you can every day, it frees up so much more time for you to do more things. And obviously, for me, that's how you can out compete with the people in your space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think whenever anybody's got any great productivity hacks and things, I'm a big believer in those, because we all want to be able to be more efficient with our time, don't we? And if you can find a way of doing something as well as you were doing it before, but with taking less time, then actually it's a great thing to share, isn't it?
Yeah, well, my big productivity hack right now is to do your podcast on a Zoom so that you can share it to your social media, and then from your YouTube and your podcast, share it to all your social media accounts, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and all of that. And the other big one is, because I come from an SEO background as well, I'm an SEO specialist, is to put the links in to your website and your podcast and whatever in all of your descriptions, because then the podcast station sends it to all of the, Spotify and Apple and Google. So it's a great way of link building on high domain authority sites without actually having to pay for those links, which is what you normally have to do for high domain authorities. So I'm doing content, marketing, social media, networking, link building, all at the same time.
Brilliant. No, it's a really good idea. And actually, one of the things that I did with kind of my YouTube channel is I did my videos, but then actually transcribed them and used them also to turn into written blogs.
Yeah, for the blog. Yeah, that's something.
You've got the same content. You need to add a little bit to it, but actually, it can then produce you something else for a medium that people that like to watch videos don't always want to read articles. So you can be a sensible way of trying to reposition some of the content you've got as well.
Yes, one of my big messages that is about people who create content, about making sure they get their bang for their buck and they really use it. So how you repurpose it for different platforms and different places, because in my experience, so many people, they spend a lot of time, they create a lot of great content, they post it somewhere, and then that's it. And they're like, well, what was the point of that?
And people then think, and content creation is probably one of the biggest challenges for us all. And people think, well, I've got to keep creating new content. It's like, it isn't. You've just got to reuse the content you've got, because they say when the pupil is ready, the teacher arrives, and it's the same is true with your content. It's like, you might have put it out before, and if you look at some of these people who've got like millions of followers, they're actually sharing the same 20 pieces of content. They're just sharing it really regularly. And it's resonating with new people, and more people are coming into it. It's not a new story. It's not a new message. It's just the fact that more people, it's new to new people. It's not new to anybody else. And I think it is getting that, isn't it? Getting to that piece that says, if what you're doing is adding value to your potential customers, then actually you're doing a good thing, because that's what your content should be about, shouldn't it? Helping somebody to be in a better place. But therefore you should share it in more places so that you can help more people.
Yeah, exactly. And the key is to make evergreen content. So content that doesn't die, so every business has main messages that it's trying to do, or main problems it's trying to solve, etc. And if you provide that value in a really good article or a really good video or a really good podcast episode, then that is your message. That's your core message. You should be sharing it like Coca-Cola does, when the holidays are coming, go and buy some Coke, which is not a product I drink or whatever, but I know about it. It's always on every year when Christmas is coming, and if that's their core message, is that the holidays are coming, buy our Coke. They don't change the message stays the same. So keep your evergreen content and get it out there,
That's it, just keep sharing it, because that's the other thing, is that people like to feel familiar. We're more comfortable with things that we're familiar with. So actually, the more regularly we see something, the more familiar we become with it, and therefore the more likely we are to engage with it, because it's what we expect. And I think that's kind of true of how we operate as human beings, isn't it? It's the same with people that we spend time with. We want to spend time with people that we know, like, and trust. We want to do business with people we know, like, and trust. We've got to get to know them, to know whether or not you like them, to work out whether or not you can trust them. And all of that is about consistency, isn't it? And continuing to turn up.
Yes, definitely. I'm conscious of the time and the fact that we both probably got other things we got to do. So I'd like to just say, thanks very much for coming on my podcast. And it's been awesome. And it's fantastic that I keep finding awesome guests for my podcasts, and you're another one. So well done. Keep up the good work. And,
thank you. It's been an absolute delight. And I'm looking forward to our next chat, and also to meeting those lovely ladies that you've suggested.
Yes, and I got plenty more people to introduce people to. So, if anyone on my LinkedIn or anyone you see I'm connected with, or on my other podcast episodes, always happy to do introductions. And those people are like-minded people who are always happy to connect with people and help people. So, that's great. And once I've had somebody on my podcast for the first time, and we've had a sort of generalistic chat about business and themselves and what they believe in, etc., I tend to go back around again then at some point and do a deep dive on a specific area. Because I'm always interested in getting to know people even more, and that's where you get to know build up that know, like, and trust, and see where you can help each other further. Then really,
perfect. Sounds great. Sounds really good.
Brilliant. Okay then. Well, there's nothing else left for me to say now other than have a great day. I know I will, and thanks very much for listening.